If you have very little or no experience with code, data layers may feel a little bit overwhelming. But I promise you they're not. And once you understand how they work, your ability to configure and manage very basic or complex and powerful data collection will amaze you. Let's jump in and show you how simple this is. The data layer is a JavaScript object that exists inside a user's browser. As the user interacts with your website, information can be pushed into the data layer. Tools like Google Tag Manager run based on data and activity occurring in the data layer. Everything from form submissions and chats to video views and traffic sources should be measured using the data layer. In the past, you would need to hire a programmer to write code that populates the data layer, or settle for limited data and be stuck using outdated measurement tactics such as redirecting users to thank you pages. Now, with ListenLayer, user activity can be pushed into the data layer automatically, and you can even write rules to customize that data without any programming. In order to effectively use data layers, you'll want to learn how to read and understand them. But don't worry, you don't need to be a programmer. Here is a basic data layer. It contains an event name and data layer variables. Each variable holds a value. For example, the value of variable 1 is value 2. Variables can be nested inside of each other. Here we have a variable called child variable, and it is inside the parent variable node. To reference a nested variable, we simply separate the names with a period, reflecting the parent period child relationship. The value of this variable would return value 3. The event name helps us to identify activity that is pushed into the data layer at any given point in time. When an event occurs, we can get values from the data layer using a tool such as Google Tag Manager. Let's first look at a specific data layer from ListenLayer, and then we'll jump into Google Tag Manager and see how we can use this information. Here in ListenLayer, we have enabled the Drift Chat listener. Under Features, we've turned on our activity data layer features for chat started and message from user, which means ListenLayer is going to push events and variables into the data layer every time this activity occurs. We've even written a rule which will push a custom value into the data layer whenever a user sends 3 messages. That value will be the word hi, and it will appear inside of a variable called quality chat. Now, you can see the data layer inside of Google Tag Manager's debug view, as we have already seen. You can also see it inside of the console. And specifically, ListenLayer writes data layer activity directly to the console to make it easier to view. We're going to start a chat, and what we'll see in our console here is we have 2 events. These are from ListenLayer writing the data layer activity to the console. We have an event called Drift Chat Started, and we have an event called Drift Message from User. You can see these easily inside of Google Tag Manager's debug view. Drift Chat Started and Drift Message from User. And you can see the specific data layer event and information that was pushed into the data layer here under the API call. Let's continue to send some messages until we reach 3. We've now reached 3 messages that have been sent from this user. And what we'll notice in our data layer is we have this section called Chat Custom Values. And you'll see that we have quality chat, hi. Looking back at Google Tag Manager, the same information is available in the debug window. Let's take this data layer event and drill into it so we can understand its structure a little bit more. Let's go ahead and paste our data layer activity into a text editor so we can understand it more easily. Now that you've seen how a data layer works, you can easily understand that the event name is listed here and its corresponding variables and values are listed below it. In this case, when a user sends you a message through Drift Chat, ListenLayer automatically pushes an event called Drift Message from User and collects as much information automatically as it can from the chat session. In addition to a chat automatic values section, we also have a chat custom values section. ListenLayer allows us to write rules that populate this with variables and values. You can see the rule that we showed a minute ago is now populating the data layer with information. And so in Google Tag Manager now, we can target this specific event called Drift Message from User, and we can fire tags based on that. But we can also look at variable values and either push those into the tag or require that this value exists inside of this variable before a tag will fire. Let's jump into Google Tag Manager and take a look at how this is done. If you are new to Google Tag Manager or need a quick refresher, here's how it works. GTM contains tags, triggers, and variables. Tags allow us to send measurement data when the tag loads. Triggers are rules that determine when a tag loads. And variables are pieces of information that we can use inside of either triggers or tags. Take a quick screenshot of this if you want to save it in your notes to reference in the future. Now, remember that Google Tag Manager reads our data layer information, and we can use it to power all of our tracking. Here, we've created a folder to organize our work around tracking Drift chats. And we have a couple tags that we've created. Let's focus on this first one. We want to fire a Google Ads tag every time a high-quality chat is completed. Now, notice this tag does not have any triggers set on it yet. We need to create one. So let's jump to triggers, and we'll add a new trigger. We'll make sure to put it inside of our Drift Chat folder to stay organized. We'll name this trigger. And we want to focus on a custom event inside of our data layer. And what we need to do is tell Google Tag Manager what the event name is that we care about. In this case, ListenLayer automatically names our events. Drift Message from User. This is the event that we want to target, but we only want this tag to fire if quality chat contains the word hi. So let's paste our event name in, and we're going to select some custom events because we don't want this trigger to occur all the time. But we need a variable now to determine or to capture and make available the chat quality. So let's go and create that variable. We'll save this and come back to it in a minute. Here in our variable screen, we'll create a new variable. And we're going to get this variable from the data layer. Now, we need to determine the path to our variable. Remember, we'll need to use the parent.child relationship notation in order to target the correct variable. ListenLayer makes this very easy if you're looking at the console. You can simply find the piece of information that you want to target, and you can focus on that by right-clicking and copying the property path. Here we found the value hi in that message that we want to track. And we'll go ahead and paste that in as the path to our variable. And we'll call this a high quality chat variable. And again, let's make sure that this is organized in our drift folder. And now let's jump back to our trigger and modify it. Looking back at our high quality chat trigger, we're going to modify it so it only fires when certain information appears in the data layer. We're going to select that high quality chat variable that we just created. And we're going to indicate that we want this to say or include the word high. Otherwise, this trigger won't work. We'll go ahead and save that and then jump back to our tag. And we'll assign this high quality chats trigger to the tag. So now you can see we have a tag which sends data to Google Ads. And the tag will send that data or load when a certain trigger occurs. And inside this trigger, we have a reference to the event name, which is in our data layer. And we're utilizing a value from our data layer to create a condition. It must contain the word high, otherwise the trigger will not fire. So we'll save this and we'll refresh our preview and take a look at it on our live website. Now, after refreshing our preview, we've made our way back to our live website. And we even started a chat. In our debug window, you can see we have drift message from user already appearing in the data layer. So we'll continue to send in some chats. Here we should have reached our threshold of 3 required chats, which would indicate that this chat conversation is high quality. And when we jump back to our data layer, we can see that quality chat contains the word high. You can also see that our Google Ads tag has fired. And notice that on the previous message, it has not fired. Looking at this tag more closely, we can identify the reason why it fired. Because all of the conditions within our trigger were successfully met. See, what did I tell you? Data layers are simple and very powerful. Now, all that's left is to jump into ListenLayer, turn on some listeners, and start working with data layers.